live! Hello, everybody! My name is Joshua Harper. I'm here with J-Talk, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host, One Hero.
J1 Hero to you. No, I'm joking.
You've been waiting all day to say that, haven't you? All week.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for coming back to another week of J-Talk podcast. We really appreciate the positive feedback we've been getting from everyone, especially with our hit podcast last week featuring the creative talents of Mikhail, Sebastian, and Nicholas Draper. Ivy. Yeah, it was really good to talk to those guys and get some information from them because there are a lot of younger artists out there that are trying to pursue something like we are trying to pursue something, and to look up to those guys and see the grind that they put in, to know that they took the time off to share that insight with us and to the rest of the world. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I had a blast. I don't know about you, but it was really cool to get to talk to these people, much more professional than myself. But they're cool dudes. They're a blast to have on. I look forward. I want to have them back on in the future, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, like we've had some really good interviews from Cortland Ellis and other influential artists that some of the big names even know and like. And then Cameron Knight the week before that. It was really cool to be able to link up and talk to some up and coming artists and prominent artists. We thank you.
It's a blast, especially from like a writer perspective. We get to talk to y'all and get a different perspective completely. So awesome. So today we're talking about a bit of a big one. I apologize if we go off topic a little bit. It's a bit of a general question, but we're going to be talking about how to begin a personal project, because we've both been in that struggle. And I don't know about you, Jay, I still struggle to start a personal project all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But before we get into that, there's two things we want to talk about. Jay, do you want to start with Space Pop?
Yeah, pretty much he's considered a label mate to me because we both use the same pencil list for our stories, mine being for Infinite and his being for Space Pop. Sebastian Riera. Corey McHale is the writer and creator of Space Pop, and it's a intergalactic space opera story of the Shonen-esque styles from the ones you know and love, from like Outlaw Star to Trigun to Cowboy Bebop, following Joshua Fallstar, the fallen prince, I believe, that's on a journey in space with some teammates of his. He's going to be joining us next week to give us a little bit more insight on his creative process and why he chose to go this route. He's actually in the process of right now trying to get a print, I believe, log 1 and 2 with a 10-page preview of log 3 for Space Pop. If you find him on Facebook and look up Space Pop, you can get in contact with him to see if you can get a copy. I believe it's around $10.
Yeah, it's $10, and I think that includes I think it's $8 plus $2 shipping.
$8 plus $2 for shipping, yes.
And so it's $10 total. You get Space Pop logs 1 and 2. Preview to log 3. Cool dude. I'm excited to have him on. Excited for him to be printing something. That's a great feeling. Awesome. I'm glad that someone, it's always cool when someone does that. When one of us does it, it's like we all do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, the second thing I'm excited for, Daredevil's coming back, guys. Daredevil Season 2 begins this Friday. It's out. All of it. Now, I don't know about you, but I am beyond excited. I really like Daredevil Season 1. I loved Jessica Jones. And I'm really excited to see. They know they can get experimental. They know what they can do now. They've learned that the limits aren't probably nearly as, they're not nearly as limited as they probably thought they were at some point or another. So I'm excited for this. I'm not a huge fan of Punisher, but I think Punisher in this form is going to be good. What do you think, Jay?
in this form, in this universe, and the style that Netflix is trying to portray it, I think it'll be really good because it won't be the kid-friendly Punisher. It'll be like real gritty, real nitty-gritty, dark style. So I'm really excited to see that. Also, with the bonus edition of Elektra, want to see how she's going to pan out and play out. But I know that first series, man, it hit everybody like a barrage storm. It just came through and it hit everybody with the least expectations to now being one of their favorite action stories of all time. And a lot of people didn't know who the heck Daredevil was. They watched Ben Affleck play him in that horrible movie that everybody says it was horrendous to the standards that Marvel has set now. And to know that people never knew who he was, that Netflix series being a predominant platform in general put him on the map. To where they even have talks of putting him into the Marvel Universe for movies. So that series alone did wonders for the action superhero genre to give everybody else the version of the dark and grittier crime stories, the ones that Nolan didn't really portray. He tried to keep it more realistic, and this one kind of went really realistic. You know what I mean? They didn't hold any punches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. It's really good. Like Jay said, didn't hold any punches, and I don't know, in our circle of friends, it spread like as soon as season one came out, like a few days went by. Some people watched it. A lot of us slept on it, and then after about a week, we all had finished it. So it was really good. It's short for the most part, about an hour, maybe a little more, it varies, but about an hour an episode, 13 episodes. I strongly recommend it. Strongly recommend Jessica Jones. And
yeah, I gotta finish that one. I didn't start that one.
that one's good.
I started it, but I didn't like started with fully invested time because Agents of Shield and so on and so forth kind of took over for that for the time being.
I really like Jessica Jones. I like the portrayal of her. I like Luke Cage a lot, though, and I'm actually really excited. He's what they said September something is when the new Luke Cage series comes out.
Yep.
So I'm excited for that. I love Luke Cage, Power Man, and Iron Fist. Oh, it's beautiful. All right, so getting into tonight's topic, I'm kind of it's going to be a fun one. Like I said, it's a very general question. It's basically like, how did you get started with your creative process? Basically, like, so I guess a less general question would be, Jay, how did you get started making Infinite? How did I get started making Disney?
Right. Yeah, you're talking about basically instead of saying like where to start, it's like, well, how to start or how did you start? If you want to break into the story genre, whether it's a novel or whether it is comic, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a tough question because everyone's different. A big part of it is motivation and what motivates you.
Well, yeah, you have to make sure it's what you want to do, and even if you are unsure, don't pay attention to the fact that, or the fear, or whatever that resides in you for what you may think, because everybody can think themselves out of a really good situation. Oh, this girl's too perfect. Oh no, there's got to be something wrong. And then the next thing you know, a week goes by and she's gone. And you're like, what did I do wrong? You overthought it. You brainiac. Why did you think about it? Just go for it. Test the waters. Go for it. It's better to say that you try it versus not trying at all.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I got started. I'm going to start with mine. I got started. So I've been writing for years. As you guys found out last week, I started writing fan fiction. That's where I got my start. I used to write this story that was kind of interconnected with all these stories. And if I wanted to add a new story onto that, if I saw something I liked, I could kind of mold a story into that, like add this little fan fiction element to it. That's how I got my start writing. So finding a good starting point, basically, for creating is really cool. Whether it's just drawing, whether it's fan fiction, find something that you're attached to that you enjoy. That's like the first step, and that'll help you figure out what you want to create. For me, it's comics. I started making videos. I didn't like that as much. I was with my friend Josiah. We did a lot of cool videos. He still does cool videos, but I kind of pulled back and I said, I don't want to do that. I want to be a writer. So finding what you work with, that's really important. That was really important for me anyway. I don't know, Jay, you didn't start making comics, did you?
Huh? I did. I literally, that's what in high school I started with graphic design. I went to college for graphic design, and then I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then it didn't really happen until out of nowhere, I became such a big fan of the film genre. A lot of the things that I watched that I know and I love were the real things that inspired me. I'd go to Walmart every other week or every 2 weeks to find out what new movies were out. I was buying them. I was always watching different anime, so on and so forth. So it was like I'm reading, watching, and becoming a part of all of these different creative mediums. And the one thing that I noticed that I wanted to do as creating stories was when I would go into movies with a whole different plot and everything thought out in my mind before I went to go and see the movie. Like, for instance, Avatar with James Cameron. I went in thinking it was going to be a Romeo and Juliet-esque war between the people on the planet of Na'vi, where it was a forbidden love story, and that would have driven more of the characters, the culture, the world itself. But instead, it ended up being something completely different, and it let me down. And there were a lot of movies that came out that I had expectations of, or I had thought up this whole grand scheme of how it was going to be, and then I go into the movie and it's not what I expected, and then it lets me down. So I'm like, well, why wouldn't I take these same things that inspire me or get me all hyped up and try them my way, or at least just try to create, instead of saying like, oh, that person let me down. It's like, well, shoot, that's the way they wanted to tell it, so let me tell it the way that I would. And that's when I really started to think about it, and the wheels got to turning. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting there paying money for characters to get created. My sister's like, I don't, a lot of people talk the talk, but are you going to walk the walk? And then lo and behold, here I am with, 8 different characters. I've got the Guardians of Infinite, the main character, the brother, the sister, plus side characters. And I had a script written for the first chapter.
Yeah, that's that's one way to do it. Like, it's like the thing I think that's important is we both started with something we didn't like. You not to say you didn't like graphic design, but it wasn't your creative medium, was it?
Well, no, just like trying to go to school for something else. It's you really change your major, or you change your focus on something else and go to something different. So yeah, I started out with graphic design and found out that wasn't my calling. I'm glad I did that route, because otherwise I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah, same. Like, I'm glad I made videos and stuff. I don't regret that. I learned a lot doing that, and I learned a lot of stuff about failure. I think failure is a big, important part of the beginning. It's the hardest part. It's the part you don't want to accept, but you're going to fail a lot. That's the hardest part for me, is like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially as a writer, you and I both invest a lot of money. I'm not saying, like, it's harder on us than it is on other creators, but there's this element of, like, I'm throwing my money away. I'm literally
you're throwing that spaghetti up against the wall, hoping that it sticks.
Exactly. Yeah. Throwing wet pasta against the wall. Like, come on. So it's tough. It's like, is this really what I should be doing right now? And right. So I understand that element completely. That's why I think it's important to find something that you enjoy, because if you enjoy something, it minimizes that fear of failure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
A second thing I think helps minimize this fear of a failure in the beginning. This is gonna be, like I said, this is a general topic. So sorry.
Well, yeah, because it feels like we have discussed this before in the previous podcast, but we're just trying to get down to actually, like, instead of focusing on the why or the motivating part, like more like the creative processes that we've went through, or the creative endeavors we've failed upon and made some minor success upon going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think a big part of avoiding this failure as well is connecting with people who want to create things similar to what you want to create. Not to say that you guys all want to create the same story or the same this, that, and the other, or that you guys always see eye to eye. But you want to have a working relationship with people around you that you can talk to, and you can get on a hangout. Like, this is what Jay and I do. Post a hangout link, get in here, join a bunch of people. Have fun, relax, talk to people, share ideas. It's a great way to
never take an idea of yours or a story that you want to tell and keep it to yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Again, that goes back to the thing of, if you practice alone, you only embed your error. You'll never learn failure. You'll never learn growth. You'll never learn things that you should learn or you need to learn going forward in the path you've chosen if you don't, go out there and experience it and fall on your face and get back up and fall on your face and get back up. Because, said it again, the masters fail way more times than the student.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and sharing those ideas. I think it's really, that lesson is very important. Practicing alone will just embed your errors. Ignoring what other people have to say will embed your errors. And it sucks sometimes. Sometimes they say things that are invalid. Some things they say, like, I'm guilty of that sometimes too. Sometimes I'll say, invalid's probably the wrong word for it, but saying things like, this reminds me too much of this. Like we talked about last week. It's like the biggest piss off any creator can hear is, this reminds me of that. And that's fair. I get it. It reminds you of that. I'm not discrediting that at all. But sometimes you gotta do your own thing. If you can make that character your own, like, Superman flies, does that mean every character that flies is Superman? No. So sometimes, it involves learning where to tell, like, what criticism is important. And I say that, like, don't ever ignore criticism. Never ignore criticism. But be sure to make sure you filter it through understanding of, like, what did you do wrong? What did you do right? what did you know? Like what I do whenever I criticize them is always make sure I find 2 or 3 things that I like, because that way you can kind of balance it out. If I just say, "Man, this sucks," you don't know what you did right. So kind of balance it with that. Figure out what you did. You know,
Right.
yeah,
Because you know, failure is the key thing if you want to break into the comic industry, the entertainment industry, the story writing industry, because there are thousands of people that are doing it. Some that are doing it just to do it, to say that they've done it. Some are doing it, you know, and fearful of rejection or failure. And then there are those that are the brave and the bold that are saying, I don't care what I have to go through, I'm going to get this done. Because if you want to break into that comic industry, you have to do this. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You have to go learn, fail, learn, and take your failures and turn those into lessons. Like last week I said, take your mess and turn it into a message, and find other artists, that have taken their message and showed you what it was from the mess that they went through. So many people in the indie market, as far as and popular in the published and professional markets too, don't really share that much. And the ones that do are the ones that show you what you really have to go through to get there. You got to grit and grind and get down to the nitty gritty and fight tooth and nail for what it is that you want to do, if it's truly what you want to do, which goes back to why we talked about the why. You know, if that's your why, the reason you live and breathe and wanting to do this, there's nothing in the world that can ever stop you, ever, to break into that industry. No matter if it's major success, medium success, or minor success, all of it comes at a great price and at a great lesson.
yeah. You know, it's couldn't have said it better myself. No, it's an important lesson to learn, that it's hard and criticism and all that good stuff. But outside of that depressing stuff, unless you had something to say there, Jay.
Oh no, I was gonna say, like if we were gonna, when we move on to the next part of it, it's like from breaking into comics, you talk about like finding an artist. Like if you're a writer like us, you find an artist, versus if you're an artist, you
Are
you
found.
just, huh?
You're
Yeah,
found.
or if you're found by a writer, from our standpoint, because I really can't speak on what an artist would do and how they would start. They may go from doing 1,000,001 sketches of a bunch of different characters and then decide on one. I've seen that happen. They'll make a character that's supposed to fit into a universe. From that universe, they spin it off and start creating more and more and more. And then the next thing you know, they've got a full story on hand. Whereas a writer, the first thing we have to do is find an artist.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of honestly a confrontational thing. It feels like, doesn't it? I don't know about you, but it feels kind of confrontational. Like finding an artist. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, especially when you have those that really don't have the art of a people person, being a people person. Like if you're not a person of people and you are really just like antisocial, that's going to be one of the hardest things for you to realize and have to do. But again, if it's something that you truly want to do, you'll overcome that barrier and move forward. But you have to honestly understand what's going on, to respect the artist, to respect the prices, to respect the work and heart and dedication that's going to go into this project, that you have to take somebody that has the creative ability to use what you want away from their projects and their things to help you out. They don't owe you anything. Just because you're throwing money at them does not mean anything. I've come across tons of artists that have said, I'm booked, or what's the story about? Oh, it's about this. Oh, that's cool, but it's not really my thing. It didn't really pump me up to push me away from my own stuff or what I'm doing right now. I appreciate the offer. Thank you. Whereas most people would be like, who are you talking to? I'm throwing you money. But I've heard this from tons of writers. I can't believe these pompous artists think they own the world because they don't da. And it's like, yeah, there you go again. As Josh just said, it's confrontational. Somebody doesn't like your work, doesn't want to accept it, or tries to critique you. It's war. It's civil war. You know, and any other day, man, I would draw this for you. But I have to do this for the other artists. But I was going to commission you too. Civil war. And then that next thing you know, it's a battle. And people don't really understand that artists are very essential to your creative process as a writer. And you need to be able to build a relationship with them for them to respect you and you to respect them in and out.
And absolutely. You need to be patient. Like the big thing is patience, I think. Like being patient. The time will come. It might not be your time today. It might not be your time tomorrow. I tell you what, and I was 16 years old, and I sat down, I said, I'm going to write a comic. I didn't write Disney. I wrote 1,000 other stories before I got here, but I never thought I would be here, you know? It's one of those things. It's patience. It's what it takes. It takes being able to say, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. If this, Jay, how many artists do you think you've messaged?
Easily 50 to 100. I would say 100 because it's been since 2011. Easily 100 artists.
Yeah.
And I'm still messaging artists to this day for other stories down the line, and I'm still getting rejections or I can't do this, and maybe in the future and so on and so forth. But it's just like from those many failures or those many roadblocks is where you really gain the experience and you really gain that hardened battle, that veteran status, that battle vision to keep going, and that's where you have to really dig deep down in yourself and then learn from that and truly learn. Learning is a key thing. You have to learn. If you don't learn and you completely turn it around into something negative, you're never going to succeed. It's never going to work for you.
Absolutely. That's why it requires patience. Never think it's too late or too soon. The time is coming.
Isn't it Jack Kirby? That was the guy that did the Fantastic Four. Was that him? That waited till he was like maybe 40 years old and created the Fantastic Four?
Yeah, him, Sam.
It's never too late. Yeah, it's never too late. And with all of that time that he was failing, he gained experience. And that's where Josh is saying that patience pays off, is because with patience comes the experience that you went through that whole time while you were being patient
Now,
to become who you need to be.
Now, I'm not really going to talk about motivation during this time frame because we've talked about that before. That's actually, I think, the first two we talked about was kind of like this motivation topic. So if you want to listen to that, first two podcasts, I'll put them in the description. But motivation is key, I guess is what I'm saying. You need that, but you need, and that's how you keep you patient and you're motivated. I can't name how many artists I've messaged, and they teach you a lot of things. I will still to this day message an artist, and he'll respond with something, or he or she will respond with something, and I'll never have thought of something from that perspective, or I'll never have thought of this angle. I've never approached it from this way, Like, I remember I had, like, a script kind of worked out, and I messaged an artist, and he said, and I didn't, and he said, what did he say? He said something to the tune of, like, listen, you need a full script. You don't need an idea. You need a script. Don't message me if you don't have a script. It was from that point on, I said, all right, well, don't message anyone without a script. And that was a really important lesson. You learn things. I don't want you to have to learn that way. That's how, one of the reasons we do this podcast is so you learn things easier than the hard way. You're still going to have to fail, but hopefully we teach you a couple things.
Yeah, and going back to that creative process again, like he just said, you coming to the person or to the artist or coming into the game in general with just an idea. No. I do that too. Even who was I watching recently? Jake Parker talked about it where he has a list. And I was like, that's funny. I have a list too. I have a list of all these ideas and concepts that are coming to mind. And it's like, do I take this concept? And I want to take this concept and see if I can flesh it out into a real story. Or is it just a really cool concept? It's like, oh, this and this and this. Oh, that sounds really cool. And then it's like, at the end of the day, can I make likable characters? Can I give a full-on script from beginning to end with convincing dialogue and be able to pitch this to somebody and say, hey, this is what I want to do? Yeah. Whew.
Oh, yeah. That moment, you have all these good ideas. You have all these cool characters. That is my creative process. Is I make characters first. I just told Jay about two I want to make. And that's where I start. I start with the characters because for me, a story is not complete without characters. So characters is the most important part. Character design, character names, characters' powers, what they do, what they will accomplish in the story. All that stuff is important to me. And I will flesh that out.
Really?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do before I start writing anything.
Yeah, I guess it is a big difference between creative people all over.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. Because for me, like, I need a vision. And that's what I think is the most important part of beginning, is having a vision. You got to be able to see into the future. Not literally, but you got to have an idea for what you want your story to be. And more than just an idea, you got to have, what I do when I start working on a story, when I start taking it seriously, is I buy these little notebooks from Barnes & Noble. They're called little Piccadilly little notebooks. And they're a 3-pack. You get either $5, you get 3 of them. And I'll fill this thing up with ideas for this one story: characters, locations, what I want the story to be, items that are important in the story, interesting points. All that I put into this book before I even begin to think about scripting it, because, excuse me, it is important to establish your vision. There's this one guy I used to know, and he used to say, without vision, you're blind. You'll wander. You'll never get to where you want to be. And for me, that stuck with me. That was I heard that when I was a kid, and I still remember it.
Because
without vision, you're blind.
Because as far as writing goes, when you start a story, start with the ending. Top off the ending. Going away from what Josh was saying about how he starts with characters, when you finally get to the point where you're like, okay, it's time to start the story, start with the ending, finish the ending, and that way you see the finish line. Then you can go from the beginning. Once you have the beginning nailed down, then you can go through the middle where you do all of your adventuring or all of your drama, your thrills and frills and so on and so forth. Those are the basic things that I've learned from the years of research I've had to do, is that a lot of people feel better when they have the ending in sight, because then they know how then they have to figure out how to get there, and that's what makes the creative process of writing so much better, because you go from brainstorming to pacing to page planning to then scripting, then dialogue, your action. It's so much more that goes into it when you have comic writing is one of the things that artists and writers have to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So yeah, basically that's it. Have a vision, like Jay said. Have an idea of the finish line. Have a goal in mind. That I think is the most. If you take anything away from this podcast, take this. Set a goal and meet it. You've done. If you set a goal and you meet that goal, you've accomplished everything you wanted to accomplish. Right? Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's correct.
Absolutely. Like I said, whether it's major, medium, or minor, just it is what it is. A success is a success.
Now, what I've heard some people do, and I've tried this before, and I don't know how I'm feeling about it. I'm on the fence. But what I've heard a lot of people do is I have this guy who says, when he starts, he writes a short story. That gets him into the mood. He writes like this idea. That's how I got to start. He said, I'm going to write a short story. And he kind of came up with this concept. Wasn't really too big. It was maybe like 5 pages. And he did it. But he did it. That was his goal. He met it. He had a vision, and he said, I'm going to meet this goal, met the goal. Done. That's an accomplishment. No one can take that away from him. And that's motivating. That makes you feel good. That makes you stay like, all right, 5 pages down. Let's do 100 next, You
have no idea how ideal that is for people of the writing stature going into this when you have to work with an artist. Learn from someone like me who came into the game with this Lord of the Rings, Naruto, One Piece, grand-esque epic story that's beyond anything of a short story, and I still to this day battle with the fact that I may not finish it, but I have the goal in mind to at least finish volume 1, and then wherever the winds take me from there with that story, I'm happy to go with. But what I've learned is that, like he just said, a lot of writers start out with one shots. Alan Moore, Snyder has done it. So many of the famous writers that I know, looking back on what they've done, even film directors, they start with a small budget, low budget film. Yeah, a short film. And I'm like, when I was in the midst of Infinite, I think chapter 3 or 4, I'm like, oh crap, that would have been a good idea. And then one of the things that kind of jumped out to me was looking at this guy named Felipe, I want to say Cagno. He is the writer of Lost Kids, The Seekers of Samarkand, and he has a thing called 321 Fast Comics. And it's literally a bunch of short stories from various artists compiled into one book. 3 pages, 2 characters, 1 twist. But the thing about it is they're all short stories that he's wrote. And from those books, he has brought out 2 stories and fleshed them out into full-fledged universes. And people that responded to certain stories said, I would love to see that one. I see how that's just a really cool concept and that's it. It's done with. Versus where some of the other stories were able to create into a better universe for a real story. And I'm like, man, you got to be kidding me. I never thought about that. So I'm like going forward with my next stories. how do how do I start my personal project over again, the new one? And it's like, as a writer, if you're working with an artist, do a one shot. You can get that completed, and that will build some self-esteem that you wouldn't believe, because you'd be able to get that printed and hold it in your hand. Shout out to Trey, McIntosh, who wrote Samaritis, because he was one of the biggest people I watched struggle. As a friend of mine, not many people know him, but he was a person that went through the exact struggle we depict, and he went through the negativity of the internet criticizing him for the stories he wanted to write, to him going against all of those odds, all the grain he could, and still found a way to publish a one shot where he actually got picked up by a publisher. But he did a one shot. That's unbelievable. I'm in my 6th chapter of Infinite, and do you think I have a publisher? Absolutely not. But what I've learned of other venues and avenues and paths that you can take to efficiently create and be happy in the same way.
Yeah. No, that's the part. Like you said a goal for Infinite. Infinite might be this big thing. You don't even know if you're going to finish it. I hope you do, but you don't know. But you do chapter 1, you do chapters 1 through 8, you do chapters 1 through 9. I don't know how long you want your volume 1 to be.
7.
Maybe 7. You do chapters 1 through 7, and that's it. You're done. You got it. That's you're done. You've printed it, and no one will ever take that away from you. You've accomplished something that most people don't have. Mind you, a lot of people that say they want to make comics actually fall away. Those people, we've both seen it, Jay. We've borne witness to it. You see these people that come in full of energy, and it's so overwhelming where to begin. It's so hard figuring out where to begin. You sit down, like when I sit down to write, I was talking with my friend Josiah, who I mentioned earlier. We were talking the other day. He said he started getting into screenwriting and stuff, and he said it's crazy. You sit down and you stare at a Word document. No one tells you what to do. You just got to do it.
Yeah, because everybody else's creative processes and the journey that they've taken is completely different from what you're going to go through.
Exactly. Like in a huge example of that is I consider myself and Jay fairly similar in a lot of ways. But I don't write long stories. I write closed events. I set out from the beginning to say, I want to have something that is closed, it's done, I finish publishing it, and that's it. I can walk away from it. Chapter 1 for me in Dizzy is I wanted to have a beginning, middle, end. That's it. I love Monster of the Week stories. I love them. So I'm blessed in that area. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people don't realize how easy it is to write yourself into an epic.
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly that I believe that that's one of the things that I've learned, again, through failure. I don't consider Infinite a failure. I just know that there were a lot of roadblocks and things that I could have done differently. But if I had not gone this route, I would not have learned what I need to learn, which is I have the biggest issue of trying to write effectively to format a short story. I think in the term of movies. I think in the term of films when I'm writing. But when I actually write, I write a full story. And what I've noticed is that there are a lot of people that will write out a full story. Todd McFarlane just put this out on Facebook where he's writing the script for the Spawn movie. He said, I have to get this to 120 pages or as close to, because 120 pages, each page is a minute. Each page is a minute. So 120 pages is 2 hours. He said, and from there, whatever I have after that, I have to go through and cut and weave and go through and cut and weave. And that's why you see so many people with these postcards all over their walls. It's because they're finding ways to do their creative process to funnel a story in the best way possible. That's going to be from beginning, middle, and end, just like Josh said. And a lot of people don't realize that, and I didn't realize that. And that was one of the things that I failed at, but that I learned and I gained from, and over time I was exposed to. So it made me a better person in the end. When I challenge myself for the next story or the next endeavor, I can go in with that experience and use it versus beating myself up about the fact that I haven't reached the success that I thought I should or whatever. Instead of taking all of those things and leaving them as negative, I've taken every negative and found a way to turn it into a positive, whether it was by my own or by looking through research and saying, oh, so it wasn't really your failure. I learned it from this way. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we just want to say really quick, we're going to summarize all this at the end. We're talking about a lot of different things at once, and we'll be sure to make sure we'll give you the footnotes at the end. But yeah, I think like that's a big thing I was blessed with in the beginning. As I grew up on X-Files and Fringe and, you know, even the anime, honestly, it's very Monster of the Week, you know? Monster of the Week stories, for those of you that don't know, is basically like a closed event. Like an episode of the X-Files, like I said. An episode of Fringe. They begin.
One-shots.
One-shots. You know, they begin, they have a conflict, and there's a solution. That's it. It's done. It's over. Closed event. That's it. Monster of the Week. That's exactly all it is. It's a one-shot. And I honestly encourage people to look at those. And when you kind of understand the process of the one-shot and the closed story, begin expanding your horizons to look at things like Bleach and Naruto. I say those because they're very mainstream. They're very easy to digest.
They also started as one-shots as well.
Absolutely. They started as one-shots. And I actually think Bleach is a really good Monster of the Week story. You know, they had these, in the beginning, the small chapters. These small moments where Ichigo's fighting a Hollow. Ichigo is now fighting a different Hollow. Ichigo is challenging Uryu. You grow, you know, he grows, and you see it, and you see this progression. And you might think they're all these little self-contained events, they're closed off, but he grows through that. And you're able to tell a story through more than just an epic event. You know, keep in mind, in Naruto, we didn't even see the Akatsuki in part 1. We barely saw them. We saw, I think, Kisame and Itachi. That's it.
Yep.
And we didn't even know who they were. We didn't know what they had to do with the Akatsuki. We just knew they were a thing.
Well, yeah, you know? I mean, but like a lot of people, and I think that's what I get to for, watching more of the Far Eastern stories, because those artists, like, I'm looking at it from a standpoint like, well, if I'm creating, I can do the same thing that they can. When in reality, they have the ability to draw their stories for as long as they want to. Mm-hmm. I don't. I have to rely on other artists, and I have to hope and pray that their health guides them long enough to finish what I started. But it's just about finding a way to being effective, and again, fearing, because I feared that if I lost certain artists with Infinite wouldn't prosper. The story's still going to be the same, and if the art is going to be what the downfall is, then so be it. But at least I can say I finished it in the end.
Yeah. So to summarize so far, set a goal, meet the goal. Don't focus on these gigantic ideas. Your story can be whatever you want it to be, and it will never not be what you don't want it to be. Don't ever let it be that. But you can still do these small events and have them lead into a big epic.
Yes.
And not injure yourself in the process. Basically, don't injure your story. Don't damage it.
Or injure your creativity.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let to summarize. Set a goal, meet it. And secondly, don't set a goal so far ahead that you're not going to meet it. Don't write an epic and then be disappointed in yourself when you can't meet it, because that's impossible to meet off the bat. You'll never write an epic off the bat.
From the writer's standpoint.
From the writer's standpoint. Absolutely, that's true. That's absolutely true. This is completely from the writer's standpoint, by the way. Thank you for pointing that out, Jay. This entire podcast is from a writer's standpoint for the most part. Secondly, with your vision, though, going back to the vision, I really like the idea in the beginning of having concept art done. That's kind of when I took that big step for me. When I said, I'm going to make Dizzy. I'm going to get started on this. I'm going to make something. That big first step for me was going onto the DeviantArt forums, finding some cheap artists. And you know what? Find the cheapest artist you want. As long as their art makes you happy, go for it. But I found a cheap artist, sat down with them, I said, hey, draw me this character Miranda, please. I pay them, draw me the character. And I was like, hey, I did something. I didn't just say I was going to do something this time. I did something. And I had it. And I had character concept art. I said, you know what? Give me another. Give me another. Give me another. And after that, I said, man, I got all these characters in my story. I got my script done. When am I going to get, that was it's kind of like when you've been dating for someone for a while. Like, I've been dating my girlfriend for a good almost 3 years now. And people are always saying, hey, when are you guys going to get married? When are you going to get married? When are you going to get married? It's kind of like that feeling, honestly, for me, was when I had all this concept. I had this concept art. I had this story I was happy with. And I had all these friends now, and I had these people I talked to, and I had what they asked for. So when was I going to make my story? You know, there's an old idiom that is, to put it delicately, you know, you either eventually, what is it? You either take a poop or you get off the pot. You know, basically the situation I was in.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And again, you started with, well, from what I've gained from you over the time that I've known you is that you started with getting the concept work done, and then you focused on this, getting that done and getting turned into a story. Whereas, I did the same thing. I wrote out the characters. I got in contact with a concept artist. I got the characters created, and after that, my next focus, I got 3 images done that depicted big events that happened in the first issue of Infinite. In his big fight, I had 3 of them done just to get a vision of it, and then from there, the next goal for me was to get chapter 1 complete. That like again set that end goal, and it was like, okay, I got the characters. Now I've got the concept for the vision to see, okay, yeah, this is where I want to go. I don't have to rewrite anything. Now let's find an artist and let's pitch them. Pitch is another thing I really think we need to talk about, like the comic book writing and story pitching. Like, I think those are 2 things that people don't understand. And then third most important, Josh spent that money, and in the end goal, money is not the end goal from him. Creating and finishing his story is the end goal for him, and that's another thing that's very key. If you're in it for the money, you need to follow professionals and find out how they do it, and find out how they do it to a T. Because you got to think retail sales and printing and publishing and all of those fancy, fun, boring details for some people that really don't care for it. They think it's very boring. But those are things that are really key, because when you're going from a writing standpoint, that's how it goes. And I really hate to feel like this podcast is jumping around, because there's so much to cover in this. But if you guys really just pay attention to a lot of the things and research it yourself, it'll prove beneficial in the long run. I promise you. Because we're different from you. We're different from whoever's listening to this podcast. We all create and think differently, but the end goal is the same, to create something. It's just how you go about doing it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the secret. Here's the secret to creating, Jay. Everyone's different, and what motivates me won't ever motivate you potentially.
Right. I don't do it for the money. I don't do it for the art. I do it for the story. Which I got something to say about that too, but I don't want to go off topic again.
No, that's. I feel like everything I want to say is just about having a vision. It's about setting goals. I'll summarize again. Set goals that you can meet, and meet those goals. Have a vision for what you want your story to be, and don't let your vision be so big that you get lost in it. Those I think are my 3 big key takeaways. Now I'm curious though, Jay. The pitching part. You're pitching to an artist. What do you do?
You know what? Every artist has always said this. They're like, "Oh, great, you want to work with me? Perfect. What's your story?" And I'm like, "Oh, crap." Because it's like, do you do the most common thing that everybody thinks to do and go down this long, like the Great Wall in China, long list of everything involved in the story in hopes that it hooks them? And that's why I think pitching is extremely important, because if you can't pitch to your artists, your friends, or your family in an effective manner to get them engaged, you've really got to do some more research and work. So pitching to an artist, you have to be able to pitch to them what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you need them, and what's it worth to them. Because some artists aren't in it for the money. Some artists are. Some artists are like, hey, you know what? I love creating, man. I like what you got going on. Thanks for sharing this with me. Thanks for picking me for your project. Let's go. Versus the other ones, they're like, okay, I'm doing this project and that project, and this is how much I've got on my plate. Why should I step away from my project or these projects to help you? And at that point in time, you have to confidently believe in your story and pitch it. You have to have the reality. You have to have a good summary. You have to have sections, and then you always got to learn the do's and the don'ts, and those are some of the very key things when you're going into your pitch. Get something that's very concise, that nails it all into one. Like for Dizzy, it's there was an event that caused superheroes to spawn all over the world, and now the team behind Dizzy is charged with going to hunt them down as superhero bounty hunters. Boom. Now the artist has one or two things to say. They're gonna go, "Oh, okay, tell me more," or they're gonna go, "No, thank you for your time. It's not really my thing. Peace." And that can go from friends to family, because he did that. He pitched that just like that in an Xbox Live party with some of my friends, and they were like, "Oh, dude, that sounds awesome. I'd read it. I'd buy it. I'd watch it."
Yeah,
it happens, and you have to have those pitches. It's equivalent to the think about it like this. You're sitting there on a Saturday night getting ready to go out to the movies, and you got the newspaper in your hand, and I'm like, hey Josh, what we're going to see? And if you go, "Oh well, it's about this, and 30 minutes later you're done, Josh is like, next movie, what else is out there?" But if you go, again, this story is about a lost samurai that lost his arms and trying to get his arms back to protect his daughter, and he needs a magical sword, and he has to go and get it, and that's where the journey of the armless samurai takes off. You're gonna go, "Oh, okay, that was pretty concise and straight to the point. I either want to see it or I don't."
Yeah. No, very important. Huge lesson. I talked about this story. I've talked about it before. I've told you multiple times. So I'll probably talk about it again on the podcast again. But I said this in the first episode. Vo Win, guy that influenced me, changed a lot of what I wanted to do and changed how I approached comics. I was sitting there at a comic convention. He was drawing me a sketch card, and he asked me, "So what do you do?" And I told him I write comics. And he said, "What's your comic?" 10 minutes later, he's like, "Listen, don't take this the wrong way, but that will never work as a pitch." He said, don't take this the wrong way, because I'm not saying you're a failure, because this is something we all learn, but you want to be able to pitch your story in 1 to 2 sentences max. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been pitching my story wrong this whole time. I'm like, okay, well, let me tell you about this is Miranda. She's a girl. She meets up with this guy King and Nate, and that's it. I'm babbling. Already, you're like, okay, it was whatever.
Speaking of pitching, Dan Levisi, the guy that does Last Man Standing, said he worked for 7 years to get that story made. Knew it inside and out. And they sat him down in front of these big executives for these filming companies, Paramount, so on and so forth. And they're like looking at the book inside out, flipping it around. And they're like, "All right, throw the book on the desk and say, all right, what's this about?" Dude, like, I can only imagine how he probably felt. He probably felt like he was trying to swallow a boulder to prepare himself to make sure he didn't babble. Because I know I would have been like, it would have been like a Steve Urkel moment. Well, Laura, like it would have been horrible. So know your story, know the pitch,
have a vision,
have the vision.
Be like Ultron's android offspring.
Well, yeah. And then yeah. I'm sorry, I'm losing track of thought. Yeah, know the vision. One of the things that I want to talk about personally when it goes to writing, Josh said he starts with characters. I started with characters, but recently, and out of all of my other stories, I've noticed that I've begun to have a certain reoccurrence, if you will, with how I write, or when I want to write a new story. And it goes to the message that I'm trying to portray, to the theme, because it's something personal to me that I connect with, that will drive me through the story to finish the story, to where there won't be any dull moments. Because if I'm going off of just revenge alone without anything else, it's going to only be revenge, and that can get redundant. And it's like, well, why am I telling this revenge story? And when I start to ask myself those questions and elaborate more on why I'm doing revenge, if it connects to me in a personal matter, then I go forward with the story, because then I have a reason to write it. If I don't have a reason to write it, I won't write it. I'll ball it up and toss it to the side, because I don't have time to invest into a mindless story when my whole reason to set out was to tell stories from my heart, my vision, and my mind. So I started to really notice that there are a lot of stories that aren't making the cut for me because of the simple fact that I choose the message and the theme that I want to portray, because that's what boils back to me. That's what comes back around to me and boils down to when I do make the pitch. I can make the pitch confidently because it's something that I know. I'm writing what I know, and that's the best thing I could ever give anybody to do. Write what you know, and if you don't know it, research it till you know it, and you're a pro at it. If you really want to tell that.
Yeah, agree completely. You need to know your story more than anyone else. And I'm gonna tell you right now, nothing's more embarrassing than sitting down and having someone explain your story to you that you just explained to them, but they did a better job. Tell you right now, it's the worst feeling you'll ever feel is when you're like, oh, this is my story. It's got, Barbosa and Hannah and they blah, 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 blah. And they're like, so it's about two people that do this?
Boom. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Your pitch is now done.
Yeah. And you know what? You didn't pitch it to them. They pitched it to you.
And then you go, oh, that does sound pretty bad. It's happened to everybody. I know it has. Whether it's been you trying to summarize when you're trying to summarize a real situation. Oh yeah, so and so got into an argument about this and this, and it led to this, and this, and they're like, so basically, Michelle and Miranda got into an argument over this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, that's all you had to say, man. It's like, oh, wow, way to just summarize it up for me. And it's funny how that goes.
I think another important thing when starting a story. Chances are, when you finally start a project, it's not your first one. Dizzy's never been my first project. And it, most certainly won't be my last one. But you'll have a lot of ideas in the interim. Don't be afraid to cannibalize those ideas. Because as Jay said earlier, you're going to have a lot of ideas that you don't like. Where you'll have them and you'll think, oh man, that's a cool story. When you finally sit down to flesh them out, you're like, man, what am I going to do with this?
It's going to be the best story ever. Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're like, wait, this is only just a really cool concept, not a story.
That's the thing. And I'm explaining to you right now. This is the difference between a cool concept and a cool story. Cool story, bro.
Well, the best that he knows. He's not a professional by any means, but the best that he knows. I got you. I'm with you.
You got my back, Jay. No, but so I'll have this idea. I see this idea of these two characters. Let's call them Peter and Cassidy. I see Peter and Cassidy. I see Peter's gone through a struggle to get to Cassidy. Cool concept. A lot of stories have done it, but it's a really fun concept to write about. Person goes through tragedy, through all this thing, meets up with person, they're reunited, and they're happy again. Great concept, classic concept. In every story you see, at some point or another, it's in your story. But that's not a story. I guess, in the most reaching of terms, yes, it's a story. Peter and Cassidy end up coming back together. But that's not what I just told you that. It's not that entertaining of a story. Were you entertained by that story? Probably not. I hope you're entertained, but you probably weren't entertained by me just listing two things that happen to two people. Because that's not what a story is.
Josh, but what you pretty much just did was pitch them on a high concept.
Yeah, no, but that's it.
Summarize the pitch. It's literally a high concept. You go to somebody and say, the magicians are going to save the world. And they go, that's a very high concept. There's no solid things to it, but what else? And you go, that's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't want that. Because first of all, you don't know your story. If that's all you got to say about your story, you shouldn't even mention anything that happens to this person. You probably don't know your story.
Yep.
Second of all, that's just a concept. That's all it is a concept.
It's an extremely high concept because you can go any and everywhere with it. Yeah. Whereas if Josh walked into me and said, dude, I've got this story. I want to tell him about these paranormal investigators signing up to be a part of this team and ride around in this truck from a firehouse and save New York from ghosts. What's it called? Ghostbusters. They're paranormal investigators and they're going around saving New York from ghosts. Yep. That's the pitch. That's a pitch. That's a very solid pitch too. That's all you need. It's not nothing major or elaborate.
But it needs to be more than a concept. That's the important thing. Ghost, and the big says again, you have Ghostbusters in New York, concept. You have these guys that go around work in a firehouse, but they're actually a paranormal investigative team, and they're going to save the world from the underworld.
Boom.
Concept. No, that's concept story.
Yeah, that's not a high concept. That's a concept with the story, absolutely. Whereas, take one of your favorite ones, Naruto. What's it about? It's about a boy setting out to become Hokage. What's Hokage? Oh, the leader of ninja of the village. Oh, okay. Is that it? Well, yeah. That's pretty much that's literally it. At the end of the day, in a nutshell, what's One Piece about? It's about a young aspiring pirate that wants to become the pirate king.
And he turns into rubber.
And I mean, but those are literally, if you narrow them down, that's it. What's Batman about? It's about a young man that lost his parents and dresses up as a bat to go around and exact his parents' death and vengeance.
Mm-hmm. The pitch, yeah, and that's the thing. The pitch doesn't need to be this big elaborate thing. Short, sweet, to the point. But it can't be a concept. Your story can't be a concept. And the big thing I was saying was, you'll have a lot of concepts as a creator. You will never not have concepts. If you're not coming up with concepts, maybe you need to take a creative sabbatical. Maybe you need to go and clear your head. Maybe you need to relax. But you want to have concepts, and you might say, so I got this story, Dizzy. Now I might have this idea for Peter and Cassidy. Peter has to go through all these trials and tribulations to save Cassidy. I can implement that into Dizzy as a story idea. I can implement that into other stories as story ideas. If I want to write an arc in Dizzy about how they meet this guy Peter, who's a shapeshifter, but he can't shapeshift back into himself, there you go, story right there. I could write a story off of that and use the concept as a base. Don't be afraid to take your ideas and invest in them, and invest them into other ideas. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, like it's kind of like saying how I was told once that you have all of these concepts and ideas. Why don't you just take them and put them into your one grand epic story? I really have the hardest time doing that because when I'm writing a story from a concept or an idea, for me, it's a theme or the message, I have a completely different look and feel for the story. I can't write, something for like AKA Rebirth in the setting of Infinite. It wouldn't work. That's just how I am. The cake has to be dressed in different icing for me. I can't have just this one big massive cake with all these different designs on it saying that this is going to be my one all be all story for all of my ideas and concepts. I feel like that limits me as a creative to not be able to expand and then make another universe or make something else. And if you can't take the time to try to find a way to perfect that craft or at least try it, I'm going to try it. I'm not the best. I'm not some expert. But that's what I want to do. I just feel like that's what I have to do. And I'll learn as I go along if I fail. And whatever failures I have, I'm going to turn them into positives.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess what I'm saying is so D. Gray Man. Have you seen D. Gray Man, Jay?
No.
You read it? So without spoiling much, Alan is an exorcist, right? And he's got all these exorcist buds. And two of the exorcist buds are called Lavi and Bookman. And they're from this clan called the Bookman clan. And they're in the story D. Gray Man, and they're the characters in this. But the entire idea of the Bookman clan is from a completely different story the author did, and felt that it wasn't really a good enough story to publish. That it was more of a concept, and that you got this ancient clan that's been keeping history, but she really didn't feel like you could do much with it. Like it was missing something. But what she did, she took it, she put it into D. Gray Man. She found a way, she decided that that's what she wanted to do. And she found a way to put it into D. Gray Man. And man, it works really well in D. Gray Man. That's what I'm talking about. If you have a concept that you want to do and you feel like you can do it in a story, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to edit your stories and be like, you know what, I want to add this character in and make a story about this character. It could be a one-off, it could be their joy forever. But don't be afraid. And I know that's tough to say. Hey, start your first project and don't be afraid. Or start your project and don't be afraid. It's tough to do. But that's kind of where you get success. Is you can be afraid, but you can't let it stop you. You hear that, Jay?
Absolutely. I'd rather be a fearless fool than a fearful one. Because then that means the world will never get to experience my foolishness. Again, taking my mess and turning it into a message.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. That's all you know. That is what you want to do. But it's tough, you know. Jay, how long did you want to write comics before you talked to someone about it? But how long did you want to make a comic before you got to the point and you started making a comic?
Oh boy. I personally, again, like I've always said, that I started out comic books because I can't get the funding for a film, or so I tell myself I can't. I don't know that, but I felt like I should go the same route of seeing if this is something that I really want to do. So in 2011, the concept, I'm sorry, came up, the idea, and I spent a lot of time hashing it out, and brainstorming, figuring out how I wanted to go about it, if I could do this. Why was I writing it? So on and so forth. So I would say at least for about 6 months to a year, I sat there and thought about it and see if that was something that I wanted to do. But in between that, I was doing the characters. I was putting money into that. And the first time I paid for that first character, I said, all right, I'm committed. I have to get this done. So I would say at least 6 months I thought about if that was something that I wanted to do. So in order to gauge myself or test myself and seeing if that's something that I really wanted to do, I put money into it to see if that would push me, to see if that would be the deciding factor, because I knew in the back of my mind I wanted to do it, but I was fearful that this is going to be an idiotic thing. My father doesn't support it. My sister kind of supports me, but she's been my biggest supporter yet. My friends and family don't really understand comic books or manga. All of those things plagued me. And it's like, oh, what if this ends up being like this? What if it ends up being like that? What if it? And then I was just like, you know what? Let me pay for this first character and see how I feel about it after that. And that's when everything changed for me, when I seen KO come across the screen from the wonderful concept artist P-Chan on DeviantArt. Leah P, self-promotion for the concept artist. Go check her out. She's phenomenal. But that's when things changed for me. That moment I got my first character.
Yeah. See, for me, I think I worked on Disney for about a year before I started getting concept art done. And it takes a long time. It's not easy. And you know what? I legitimately started working on Disney a little, I mean, pages began getting produced at the end of the summer last year. So we're coming up on a year that we've been in production on it. And I'm just now here. I'm just now getting to the point where I'm publishing it. And it's tough, it's scary. It is a big world out there, and it is all your canvas, and you can do whatever you want. So don't get swallowed up. Have a vision, because those without a vision are blind.
Those without a vision are blind. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I I kind of regret going into this with this topic because it's been so vast and so all over the place that I hope it ends up being somewhat beneficial. I mean, because how to start your personal project can go from if you wanted to break into comics to how to find an artist. It's like there's a lot of different topics under that banner, and that's what kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But I think we covered a lot. I mean, I think we covered a lot. I think there was some benefit to it. About the writing standpoint, about story pitching, the relationship with the artist. But if there's any other questions that anybody could ever have, put them in the comments that we didn't cover, and I'd gladly like to sit down and talk with you guys about it or whatever, what have you. This was just kind of like a filler spot for us to have, and for us to talk about something. I love dogs. Woof woof. Thanks, Josh. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, put a comment. Ask us a question. I mean, you and I are both fairly quick to answer them, I think, Jay. I try to be quick, and honestly, like, all those things you just listed are easily things we could do. It's such a big question, Like you said, it's a big question. It's not just like one thing. It's like everything.
Yeah.
You could do a topic on.
I'm like, dang it! Like, I wish we would have, kind of highlighted some sections before going into this, because I don't want to, like, make people think we're just like rambling or babbling, but it was just a topic that came up, randomly. That was a really cool topic to talk about. But once you, again, it was a high concept pitch to me and Josh, and we kind of just went with it, and now we see the results. But again, we learned from this. For next
Don't
time.
do high concepts, people. Avoid the high concepts. The irony of the situation, Jay.
The irony of the situation. We just helped you realize that everybody makes mistakes. It's just how you learn from it. So this is actually like a living proof podcast of the topic. That's awesome.
We're so stupid. So stupid, Jay. We're so stupid.
We're not stupid. We're creatively foolish.
Creatively foolish. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not stupid, Dad. I'm creatively foolish.
Yep. I'm creatively foolish. Sorry.
No, but to summarize, I said I'd summarize. Have a vision. It's my biggest point. Set goals, meet them. Don't set insane goals. Set reachable goals. Don't be afraid to work on your story, and don't be afraid to if it takes too long. Have patience. You need to have patience. Without it, you're gonna die.
Dude, we didn't even cover like the communication and the social media standpoint. Like, I'm gonna go for this and finish it off with this. But there's another thing that you have to have no fear in, and that's self-promotion. Not everybody will walk out into the street and say, "Hey, I'm Jerry. Hey, I'm Josh." Not everybody can do that. Not everybody will do that, because being an introvert versus an extrovert, so on and so forth, makes a difference. But in this industry or this path you choose, you have to be willing to promote. You have to let people know you are creating Dizzy, you are creating Space Pop, you are creating Infinite, you are creating Iridescent, you are creating Your Wonderful Grand Story Tale, whatever the case may be. You are creating Dream Vesper or Lux Nova. Those guys, what they're creating, so you have a reason to follow them. But if you don't put yourself out there, no one will know. And again, that's why I say you cannot be selfish with your creativity. Be creatively foolish and go all out. Put it all on Twitter, put it all on Instagram, find the best way that works for you, but you have to do it. And that goes into thinking of conventions, and online presence and such. It's so much to go into this topic. It's ridiculous, but
we'll talk about that later. There's a lot. I do want to say that it is important. I like to keep my Facebook entirely for my photography. I do photography. Jay, you've seen my Facebook. It's mostly just photos that I've taken, but I do post for Dizzy. I've posted more about Dizzy than I have any Facebook status in the past year.
You know what? Not to put you on blast, but when you released Dizzy, I said to myself, how is he expecting anybody to, one, subscribe, and two, find out that you're doing this? Because I did not get blasted with promotion enough from him. And I know Josh, and I believe I know Josh to be a little bit timid in this area, because there's a lot of things that he's comfortable with that we talk about. And there are some things where he's like, I'm not really comfortable with. You really did that? Are you crazy? And it's like, well, yeah, you got to be creatively foolish. So, Josh, my challenge to you by the next podcast is to find a way to be creatively foolish.
Don't do this, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely I am. You like to throw out the challenges. I accept.
Have you read anything?
No. You're going to listen to me. I want you and anybody else that listens to this podcast that's doing something creative, be creatively foolish and find a way to let the world know what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're creating, so that they don't forget it. I challenge you. I'm one crazy guy to do it. I'll go on Reddit and get ripped to shreds in a heartbeat by those merciless people on the manga forums or the comic forums. I don't care, but at least you know what I'm doing. I've been ripped on Google Plus with people telling me it looks stupid and horrible. I've been ripped on Tapastic. I've been passed up on Tapastic. I've been passed up and looked down upon for the entire time of me doing Infinite. But guess what? What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Why? Because I'm a fool that's creative. I'm going to keep saying that. That's my new thing, creatively foolish, but you have to want to do this. Flat out. Nobody's going to just stumble upon it. Nobody just stumbles upon $1 million. Nobody just stumbles upon a deal with Marvel like Anthony Piper just did. You put in the work and you go all out. He's creatively foolish. Perfect example. He did Trill League following superheroes of the DC caliber and Marvel caliber and turn them into hip hop, urban-esque retellings of different heroes. He didn't know if that was going to succeed or not, but he did it. And look at where it got him. Out of all the promotion that he did.
Fair enough. I will, Jay, I'm going to take you up on this. This Friday when Disney releases, you're going to see it everywhere.
I don't give a heck about the next one. I'm talking about now. You got stuff out now that people don't know. 2 little views, 2 less subscribers. You need to get out there and do it. And you need to be all over Instagram with a Disney comic Instagram or whatever you need to do. You need to do some research and do that.
I
challenge you. I challenge you and anybody else.
You know what? I just checked and I got a subscriber. I got 9 subscribers now, so got that going for me. You know what? Be creatively foolish.
You really want me to say this?
No, I don't. I will do this. I'll take your challenge, Jay. I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that like I see a lot of people on any website. Some stories aren't as great as the others, but because of the way that they promote. Like Iridescent, you know, he was tagging people in his photos until they said stop. But that was being foolish enough. You know, people are going to respect it. They're going to know. I mean, yeah, it's shameless. Yeah, it can be uncomfortable. Yeah, it can seem that way. But you got to do it. Or how else are people going to know? The internet's such a vast place. It's such a vast place. You don't know. Nobody just stumbles upon you on accident. Pay for the ads. Promote yourself. Put it out there.
Actually, there is a website called Stumble Upon where you can stumble upon things. All right, I think Jay's had enough. I think Jay's had enough of me for tonight.
But yeah, that was my last thing to try to cover in this vast topic. Oh my goodness, I'm so sad now that I look back on it. It's just funny how ironic that it came to be so similar to the podcast topic. But yeah, we're human. Hope you like it.
Make mistake. You know, some would say this is a mistake or a failure. And you know what? We're gonna learn from it. It's a learning experience. Isn't that right, Jay?
Yep. Accept the challenge. I challenge you to be creatively foolish.
I will be creatively foolish, Jay.
You and everyone else, do it.
You know, yeah, you
Just
do it.
Jay.
You be creatively foolish. You know, I want you to step it up a notch. You guys step it up a notch.
I am. I do every day.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So that's this broad topic swept under the rug. We'll talk about it more in depth on a later date. We'll break it down into actual pieces. And we'll talk about them each separately, probably. But I think this is a good one. I do think at the end of the day, this is a good one. So, you got anything else to say, Jay? Jay? All right. I guess that's it then. I will go figure out what happened with Jay. You folks, hope you have a wonderful week. My name is Joshua Harper. You can find me on the internet. I do Dizzy. That's on thepassive.com/Dizzy. On Facebook and Instagram, I'm all over the place. Check me out. Jay, what is his URL? I don't know his URL, but it's Infinite the Journey. It's Tapastic. If you search Infinite the Journey, it'll pop up. I don't know what else he likes to promote, though. I forget. I sit here every week and I talk with the guy. I don't know what he likes to promote. We'll say Twitter at I am one here. Facebook. Facebook.com/infinite AGF. Figured it out. I got this. I can do a podcast by myself. Everyone. I want you all to have a good night. Have a good week.